Just very briefly, you have your shop here with your products stored on your e-commerce. We have a brand filtering, for instance. We have a filtering here where you can filter on brand, different types of products. You have your products stored here in a list where you can store them or structure them in different ways. And if we filter on Adidas, for instance, it only finds products that are related to Adidas. So in this way, you can structure your products in lists, and you can even show them on specific product pages where all the information on the products will be shown. So we have a lot of different ways of structuring and showing our products. With Dynamic Web, and you can filter or you can select the different sizes, for instance, on the glove, and it will change. And you have your categories, like I said, for different types of product information and related products. Moving back, you have your product catalog within your e-commerce here, stored in your platform here, where you have access to the entire platform with the different solutions, content, users, e-commerce, PIM, and so forth. And within the e-commerce, you have your product catalog, where your e-commerce structure is based. And within the catalog, you have your products. For instance, mountain bikes, we have 9 of them. And on the mountain bike, you have all your product information. Right. And you're also able to deal with all of your orders, for instance, within the e-commerce. So if we jump into our orders here on our bike shop, we have all of our orders here. And like I tried to show you, if we jump into an order here, you see John bought a Mongoose bike for $12,000. He saved $3,000 on because it was on discount, so all he has to pay is $9,000. And all the details of the order is here. And yeah, you have some track and trace, and you can create shipping documents and all these things in the system. So you can in reality handle the entire order here from Dynamic Web. Or if you want to, like I said before, if you have an integration to ERP, you can push all this information to your ERP and handle it there. And then all Dynamic Web really does is it handles the order and sends it to your ERP system, and we present the products in these different configurable ways on your e-commerce store. Other than that, you're really able to handle most of your e-commerce business. In Dynamic Web, we have a tool for recurring orders. You can set up quoting so that if you want a sale, if you want to buy 20 bikes, you can maybe get an order for 10%. And you can set up recurring orders so that you don't have to repeat your order manually every month. You can just set up an order that then repeats the order whenever you want to. And with Dynamic Web, you also have a price matrix that can handle things like discounts and offers. For instance, if you're a B2B shop and you want to give a specific price for each logged-in user, you can set up a discount for each user, for instance. And we have the ability to set up order discounts where you would get a discount based on the order that you make, so that if you order over $500 worth of products, you get a 10% discount, or a product discount like we saw with the bike before, where, for instance, you can save 25% on a bike here. So you have different ways of managing orders and discounts in the system. And then obviously you're also able to handle things like favorite lists for different users. So if a user has set up a favorite list of specific products, you can see their lists in here, and you're able to create lists on behalf of users. So if you have a gigantic shop and you have a B2B customer and you want to make sure that they can always find their specific products, you'd be able to set up a list on behalf of them, and they would only have access to those products when they access their favorite list. And you're also able to set up things like loyalty points when you purchase products, and you can even purchase products with loyalty points on the e-commerce store, and you can send out vouchers, for instance, in an email for upselling. If someone bought a bike and they didn't buy a helmet, you could send them an email with a voucher with 25% off on a bike helmet and create some upselling opportunities in this way. And you can also sell gift cards on the Dynamic Web store. Cool. And just to give you an idea of how to configure your e-commerce sites, such as these ones, we'll jump into our website editing area. And I showed this a little bit during the webinar last week. mostly for the content. So for now, we'll jump into the e-commerce editing area. We'll show you just briefly how to configure the layout of your shop, where you can change basically everything from how to present the filtering options that you see here to how to edit. You can edit the layout on your shopping cart. How should it be presented when people want to see what products do I have in my cart? All of this is fully configurable within the website editing area here. So if we jump into our product list, you can see you can change the facets view mode, for instance. If we just try and change this one, you'll see our facet list is now on the top. So that's one way of configuring the layout of your e-commerce shop. Yeah, and you can even enable or disable the different list views. For instance, these ones where you change the view and you can set a default. So let's say you want to always make sure that the full information is presented, then you set a default list view on the list. And you can even change how should the list view be presented. You can change your facets. You have your price design if you want to change that a little bit. Yeah. And on the product page itself, if we go to a product, such as this one, you are then able to also edit how should we present the different information on the site, like how should the image be presented, how should the top layout be. So if we just try and change the settings here a little bit, you'll see that the configuration of the information totally changes just by clicking a few buttons. So this is the general idea of Dynamicweb, so that you push your information, your product information and your products into our system, and Dynamicweb is able to reuse that information and even enrich it, as we'll see in a little bit, and then present that information in different ways, how you want it to look on your website. So we really handle all of the presentation of your products, and we also handle all of the logic that is going on when, for instance, an order is being done. So you lose all of the having to code a website and having to ensure that what happens when I click add to cart, it needs to speak to the cart, and there has to be a checkout flow that's working. We handle all of that for you. All you really need to do is have a product and we can set up the rest for you. And as you see, you can edit all the details here of how other information is presented, like description, downloads, and videos, and the variants, how should they be presented? How should we be able to present how to create a PDF with Dynamicweb? How should the related products be presented? All of these things can be configured here in the e-commerce. So you have a lot of configurable options that you can work with in terms of configuring the layout of your e-commerce. So it's not just creating the products, you're able to configure how to present them as well on your store. All right. Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. Yeah, so if you have any questions for the e-commerce, I think I'll move on now into our PIM. So if you have any questions for the e-commerce, feel free to ask away, and I'll take a look at them in 15 to 20 minutes when the time is up. Otherwise, I'll move into our PIM. The second part, or the next part of today's webinar, and just like on the e-commerce, you have a starting dashboard on your PIM, where you are presented different types of information from your solution. So we can see things like the products, how many products do we have, how many products need enrichment, how many products are ready for publishing. And once again, like I said, with e-commerce, you're able to customize these and personalize the dashboard so that a marketing PIM user, for instance, would only see information here related to their products in the dashboard. How many products do I need to enrich compared to, all the other employees in the organization? And the way we usually work with PIM is we have three approaches. First is structuring our products within the system. There's the enrichment of the products, trying to set up workflows and making it easier for our employees to approach the enrichment and ensuring that the products are fully enriched before we publish them. And then the publishing itself, lastly, where you're able to publish to, for instance, your e-commerce shop that is also within Dynamicweb, and even other channels like Amazon or eBay or whatever you're using. So if we jump into what we call warehouses, a warehouse is where we store our products in the different shops that you saw before. So our bike shop that we saw here, all the products are stored here in our PIM Bikes and Equipments warehouse. And if you see here, the structure is a little bit different in our bike shop than compared on the e-commerce, where the structure had to do with mountain bikes and city bikes. We structure it a little bit differently usually in a PIM system. So in this scenario, we've structured it around the brands, where all the Mongoose brands then have their bike types inside. But this can be different based on your business and your industry. But usually your e-commerce structure will look a little bit different than your PIM structure. And so you see within our mountain bikes folder, we have 5 different products. And you can even show their different variants. They have different colors. All these things here are within your structure. So if we jump into one of these products, you'll see we have a lot of product fields that we can then enrich them with. So you have your name and your teaser text. You have your product images and product fields. And you even have some equipment that you can then apply to the product. And the reason you want to work a little bit with the structure in your PIM is that if you have a lot of different brands and a lot of different types of items that you're selling, not just bikes, but you're maybe also selling coffee machines and whatnot, and TVs and whatnot, that's a lot of different product fields like these ones that you would have on every single product. So part of the structure is ensuring that the different products only have the fields on them that you would want them to be enriched with. So if we look at bikes, for instance, all we want to be able to enrich the product or the bikes with is things like equipment and maybe their brand details and their product fields here, like their brand and their color. Whereas a coffee machine or a TV, maybe instead of equipment like brakes and a fork, would have different fields attached to them. So part of the structure is ensuring that on a folder like bikes, you have a product category called equipment, where certain fields are only applied to your bike products. So if you go into your components folder, the products in there would have different fields applied to them than equipment. That could be anything to do with TVs, for instance. So this is part of the structure where you ensure that the different products can only be enriched with the information that is related to those products. So that's part of the structure in not only ensuring that mountain bikes are on the Mongoose brand within our bikes folder, but also that the fields that we can apply to those products are only able to be applied to those exact products. All right, and once we're happy with this, we are able to move on to our workflows, where we're now think of how do we then make it easier for the employees to approach enriching our products and ensure that the information that should be applied to those products is actually fulfilled. Because when you look at a warehouse like this one, or we take all of our products here, approaching a list such as this one, where all of your products are just stored in a long list here, would be insane to approach every product and say, okay, we'll start with this one and then go through every single one until we're happy. So what we do instead is we create, for instance, workflows where the products are divided into different workflows based on how enriched they are with information. So if you go into a workflow such as this one, we can see all of, for instance, our newly arrived products that have maybe been pushed in from our ERP system. And these products probably won't have a lot of information on them other than, yeah, they have a name, they have a number, and they have a workflow state. And the workflow state here is they are newly arrived from our ERP, they have an EAN number and maybe a color. So that's all the information that is applied to this product. And then whoever is in charge of this workflow will then have to go and enrich these products. And for that, we have set up a completeness on the products, where whoever is in charge of enriching these products can go and look how far am I with enriching these products. So if we click on the completeness, there is no rule on this one. So that means whoever's in charge of these will then have to simply move them to the next workflow state, which is our ready for technical detail. And if we look at our ready for technical detail, they're a little more completed here. And the idea is that you would have an employee who is only in charge of this state of the workflow, whereas your product manager would be a different employee and your marketing would be a different employee. That would be a marketing department. So whoever is in charge of technical details can see, I have a few products that are nearly done and one that needs a lot of information. And if you look at the completeness of the mongoose bike here, he can look at what fields do I need to enrich. What fields have I enriched? I need to enrich the EAN number, external reviews, the gears, and the light. So that gives him a good indication of how far am I in the enrichment of this product. So if we jump into a product such as this one, and we see we already have a Danish translation that is done. Our English master is already done. And maybe we jump down and see, okay, we need to add our gears, and we need to add a light. So let's say this bike has 21 gears. And we'll save and close this product. We now see our completeness moved from 75% to 80%. And we've now added the gear and the light. So in this way, the employee in charge of technical detail will be able to follow and will have an easier time figuring out how far am I in the enrichment of these products. And if we know that all of these 3 or 4 products need to have their gear added to the product field, we can simply bulk edit these 3 products at the same time. So if we create a bulk edit, we'll simply go and add gears to the products. I'm not sure if they need the gears, but let's just add a gear, and they need 21. They all have 21 gears. We've now added the gear for all of the products. And we see this one at least changed. So this one is now at 20% completeness, where it was 15% before. So in this way, if you have a lot of fields that are the same for every product within your workflow, you can simply bulk edit those in order to do it at the same time. And in this way, you obviously save a lot of time, and you can even do it for more fields at the same time as well. But let's say this one is at 100%. Our technical detail employee has finished working on it. He would then want to move this one. So let's say this one is ready for marketing. We simply change the workflow state within the in the product, in the information, and we then move the product into our marketing workflow, where we then find the bike. And as you see now, the completeness is completely changed, because each workflow has different rules for completeness, obviously, because the marketing people want to add different information than the technical detail employees. They want to add things like the meta title, the teaser text, the meta keywords to ensure that the products are SEO optimized. They don't deal with the gears and the cranksets. So the different workflows have different completeness rules because obviously they need to work on different things. So in this way, it makes sense that you have different employees who are only in charge of the different workflow states. And when you set these permissions, you're even able to set permissions that say, if you're only in charge of marketing, you don't even see these fields. You don't have access to them. You can't do anything in there. So you're able to set up these safety rules that ensure that no one is able to go and edit information they shouldn't have access to. All right. And a lot of you will be wondering, how could you saw the translations before, and how do you work with translations? It's a question I get a lot. Do we have to simply go and, manually put in the translations here for the German language and the French language? You can do that if you want to. An easier way is to simply take all of your products and export them, where you can select which fields would I like translated. So I'll add the color the composition, and I would like it translated into all these 4 fields. And what you get when you export these products is you get an Excel file with product information in the Excel that you can then simply send on to a translation agency, or you can do the translations on your own. And when the translations are done, because each product is linked to a specific product number, you can simply import the products back from the same Excel, and the product information will be automatically translated on every product. So in this way, you're able to bulk translate products, and you will get all of the information that is missing here automatically. You won't have to do that manually anymore. So that's a great way of saving time if you have a lot of translations that you need done. And the same principle goes for product information. If you're using a third-party product information system like that could be IceCat, for instance, when you set up an integration, you're also able to import product information from there that would then be applied to your products in the PIM. So you don't even have to manually add in all of the information. If you have the information stored somewhere, simply set up an integration and we'll manually pull the information into the products. So you lose that work there. Right. The last step in our workflow here is our ready for publishing products. And that leads us to our last step in the 3-step PIM structure of structuring products, enriching products, and then publishing products. So when we have products here that are ready, their completeness is at 100%. All the information they need has been applied to them. We can then select them and then publish to channels. And like I said in the start, when you have your e-commerce in the same solution as your PIM, there's no integration that you need to do. All you need to do is select to publish, and then you select the correct group that the product should appear in. Simply add it to your mountain bikes if it were so, and then save, and the products will then appear in your e-commerce shop. So there's no integration that needs to be done. You don't need to upload the products or anything. You simply save them, and then they are in your e-commerce shop. And the same goes for our channels. We also publish to channels like Amazon or Partner Shop, or maybe even a print catalog, where you can save your products to a catalog and then print them in a PDF. So if you have an integration to, let's say, Amazon, and you have a group structure, could be a winter collection for clothing, for instance, if you're in clothes, and you want to add 3 products to your Amazon shop, you simply select the shop and maybe your e-commerce shop at the same time, and you're able to publish those products at the same time. And it's not just Amazon, it's eBay as well, and whatever channel you might be using, you're able to publish to those channels from your PIM system here. Right. Yeah, and you see your channels down here. You have access to them as well, where you can go and you can edit the products in your different channels. The structure there is obviously different than in your warehouses, but that all depends on the specific channel that you're working with. All right. So that has been the general run through of both e-commerce and PIM. I think for now we have 5 minutes left, so I'll set aside some time for questions if we have any. And yeah, a lot of them have to do with not seeing the screen, so I apologize for that. Yeah, very sorry. I hope you got something out of the webinar, at least in the start. Anyway, otherwise I apologize. So I'll just go. We have 3 questions here. Danish Horsch asks if banners can be added or slides. I'm not sure what you mean with banners or slides. I assume that's for the e-commerce. Banners or slides. Do you mean where the product sort of slides like in a carousel? Then yes, you're able to do that. You actually have it on the front page here, which, if I understand the question correctly, you have a slider here on the front page, which you could, of course, also set up in the e-commerce. Next question from Jimmy Pillarsen. Can you set which fields is turned on as standard on a new product in a category? Yes, of course. So if you have a category called new products, for instance, you could then set a standard which field should then be available on the product when it's new. And you could probably I would set that up in the workflow as you saw when I showed it before. If we're talking PIM, so that as you saw in the PIM workflow, the newly arrived products didn't have a lot of possible fields to edit. So you're able to set those there, and then depending on the workflow, they would have different fields available for enrichment. And Philip Utagawa asks, is there any marketplace/store for third-party modules? We don't have a marketplace for third-party modules. I assume you mean something like, do we have a place where you can download some module and then use a plugin to plug into Dynamicweb? We don't have that. It's in the pipeline, but I can't give you an ETA, and we don't have it right now. So you're not able to simply download a plugin and then apply that to Dynamicweb. That would be a customization usually that you need to do. And Regge Grönlund asks, does it take special licenses, for example, a marketing member to access one of the workflows? No, it most certainly does not. It's simply setting the permission for the marketing user in the system. So you see we have a user thingy in our platform where, let's say, you have different employees. That could be a marketing employee. All you would need to do is set the permissions for the employees in here. So a marketing employee obviously should only have access to the marketing part of the workflow. So that would be editing his or her permissions to only have access to certain parts of the PIM, and maybe only have access to certain parts of the content or the e-commerce or whatever the person is working with. So that's simply setting up their permissions, and it doesn't cost extra, no. Any other questions? Feel free to ask away. Okay. All right then. I think I'll turn off the webinar now then. Thank you all for participating and hanging out, even though you didn't see anything in the start. I apologize for that. So yeah, I'll end the webinar here, and then I wish you all a very good weekend, and yeah, thanks for hanging out. Bye-bye.